Okay, inshallah we are now live. I will put this on mute first while we establish the link, inshallah.
Okay.
Baby phone. Arif. New.
A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum Uncle Fakri and Aunty Jamila. and inshallah to all our viewers online. We apologize for the slight delay in starting. We're running 15 minutes late due to a slight technical error. Hopefully, inshallah, everything hopefully will run smoothly from here. Inshallah, the plan is to start our online talk today, and we will introduce our speakers from Malaysia. And after the online talk, inshallah, we will have a question and answer session for anybody who wishes to ask any questions to our distinguished speakers. You can post questions either on the website itself, or whoever is connected to myself or Sharafiz via WhatsApp can also post us questions, and we can ask the questions for you, inshallah. Inshallah, this is an online talk, the third in our series this year under IKRAM Wanita dan Kekeluargaan. Prior to this, Uncle Fakri and Auntie Jamila have also given us a talk on parenting. And this time, inshallah, we hope to talk more about marriage, inshallah. And hopefully this will be beneficial to ourselves first and foremost, and hopefully everybody else who are also viewing with us today. Inshallah, we would like to start the talk today with Kitab Al-Fatiha. Inshallah, I invite Sharafiz to give a little bit of introduction for our speakers today, inshallah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It has been a great honor and pleasure to have Ahmad Fakri or lebih dikenali sebagai Uncle dan juga Auntie Jamila. So to be with us today live into our house. So let us introduce first Mr. Ahmad Fakri. Mr. Fakri is a distinguished Toastmaster or DTM. He also, it is the highest award bestowed by Toastmaster International. He also is a certified professional trainer academician, which is earned from the Institute, the Malaysia Institute of Management. So he is he's an engineer, graduated from the US, and he also earned a master from Islamic Institute of Malaysia, and he's been around the places giving a talk about parenting skill. He's also attached to the Umam Superdep, which is with his wife, Umam Superdep. So he addressed a lot of people in various organizations. Some of them Bannegara Malaysia, Bursa Malaysia, University Kuala Lumpur, and many other organizations. So it is a big pleasure to have Ahmad Fakri with us today in this weekend, live into our house. Yeah. So, and also let me introduce also his wife, or morely known as Auntie Jamila. Jamila Samian is the author of Kindness Miracle, the Kindness Miracle, Cool Mom Super Dad, Cool Boys Super Sons, and also the Groovy Guide to Parenting Gen Y and Gen Z. So she has been this vast experience in writing books relating to parenting family. So hopefully without wasting further time, so I think it's a great honor and pleasure to have Mr. Ahmad Fakri and Jamila Samian to continue to start giving us talk, inshallah. Okay, silakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin.
والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. To my dear beloved brothers and sisters, and especially yang berusaha, our MC, the Sharafis and also Munira. Thank you very much for making this New Year event, Alhamdulillah, for us to get together in the true spirit of mencari keredaan Allah and also trying to gain our knowledge. Then I think one of the things that I want Uncle and wanted to highlight from our introduction is that last month on the 25th of December, both Uncle and Auntie celebrated our 31st anniversary after we known for one another for more than 30 years, Alhamdulillah. And this is the topic of our discussion today, whether we will live happily ever after setelah kita mengucapkan ijab kabul, aku terima nikahnya, and after you confidently recite I do to one another. So whether it is a myth or whether it's a reality. So the testimony of what Uncle and Auntie has developed, Alhamdulillah, we would like to share. And let me give you a bit of the overview of our discussion today, pencerahan dan perkongsian. Uncle wanted to highlight on some basic things when it comes to a change and model, because this is in relation to our discussion, whether we want to make our marriage a happily ever after or not. So the choice is us by understanding this simple change model. We also like to share that the basis of our discussion today in terms of looking it on some Quranic angle, Islamic perspective, and we have also made some research on some of the studies being made recently. And lastly, of course, we would like to share some of our practical and real example that we have done. So from that perspective, the focus area in terms of realizing this marriage perspective, or whether it's a myth or reality, is we look at it from three angles. One, we look at it from an intention perspective, how the pure intention can really make or break the marriage. Second is that is something in the past. Second is in terms of whether the current environment is there, that feeling of blame or feeling of unhappiness between husband and wife. And lastly is through our own personal experience on trying to implement, if not now that you have done, maybe in future you could enhance further the relationship through the act of thoughtfulness. We believe thoughtfulness is one of the aspects of kindness then. So then we will then wrap up and summarize with some question and answer, and possibly if we do have time is to think of what's next after this online kuliah number 3, or rather our sharing number 3, so that then we could see progress in how we develop and nurture as well as enhance our relationship. So before Uncle talk about the change, and so maybe I give Auntie just to add some initial words from her side, inshallah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. I'm truly honored and privileged to spend this short time with all of you, bersama adik-adik dan perhaps some of you anak-anak, together with Uncle Fakri. So I hope that this time, walaupun sedikit, insyaAllah akan menimbulkan perbezaan. It will help us to rise above whatever challenge or problems or issues that you might be facing in your marriage. And maybe perhaps you are not even facing a major problem. Maybe it will, inshallah, raise your marriage to a better, happier level, inshallah.
So with that, I think the first thing to do is to do a reality check, knowing where we are now, and in this simple model that Uncle would like to introduce, and it's applicable in anything, in your marriage, in raising the children, in your career, in your personal life and development and goals. The first thing you need to establish is know where you are now. This is your current state. This is where you are in this situation. So you know your reality, and then this is where you are going to be, your future state, the state that where you have desired in terms of the outcome. So in between the current state and the future state, and this is where we focus on the marriage aspect, your relationship with your spouse, where is it now and where you want to be. And once you are clear where you are now, where you want to be, you know that there is a gap. And once you identify the gap, preferably both of you conduct the analysis, is that you build the roadmap, the steps for you to be able to achieve the future state. So this is a simple model when it comes to managing change from being where you are to something better, greater, and more positive. So there are elements inside this roadmap that I'm saying in between. It could be internal, it could be external. Internal involves you changing your perception, your understanding, your level of awareness, either through knowledge, skills, and also your attitude. So that's the starting point. Now the next one, external in the roadmap, could be a coach, an expert, someone that you would like to talk to, and in this case, uncle and auntie. So we are considered to be the external intervention to make you closer from your current state to your future state. So that's a simple model that uncle wants you to bear in mind, and towards the end, we would then be able to revisit back this model, so that then you would be able then to clearly identify what areas you want to improve. Could be your knowledge, it could be your skills, it could be your attitude. Moving on, as uncle wanted to start off our discussion on building this relationship to make it happily ever after, is uncle, there's a lot of ayat, there's a lot of advocacy in the Quran when it comes to husband and wife. Litaskunu ilaiha, rahmah, mercy. So these are the various advocacy that Allah has prescribed. But one of the things that uncle wants to bring in relation to our topic today is the concept of hunna libasun lakum wa antum libasun lahum. This is from Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 187. So, and let me just translate it, is that your spouse, they are your garments and you are their garments. So the key word here is libasun lakum. And Allah have used this metaphor, which is garment, in a very descriptive manner. If you recall on our previous session, uncle said about the union of men and women literally happened in Jannah. So when Nabi Adam and Hawa tergelincir from their deeds in Jannah, and again you must understand, marriage happened in Jannah, and it is the family that's happened in the earth, Habil and Qabil and that sort of things is happening in the earth. But in Jannah, they had their union, and when they cross the line as prescribed by Allah, the first thing that happened to them was dilucutkan pakaiannya. So that sends a very powerful message of what does pakaian means, you know. So there are many ways of looking at it. One is literally that both you, husband and wife, are covering one another. So your wife covered one part of the scope in the family or cover you physically. That's one way of looking at it. Both of you complement one another in terms of the roles to strengthen, because one person is better than the other in certain aspect. And then of course, it also conceals some of the error that one party is doing in the eyes of the public. So I think the word clothes, and it has other connotation where in tandem with Surah Al-A'raf. Surah Al-A'raf was very clear. O children of Adam, we have bestowed upon you clothing to conceal your shame and as an adornment. So maknanya dignity seseorang, maruah seseorang. And if you know all those people who are being caught by the police and all those things, one of the things they did was strip naked, so that then you lose your dignity. And this is where both husband and wife act as a common body to ensure, and this is what I felt very strongly, that by covering one another, it will bring that feeling of completeness, yeah, between husband and wife. Inshallah, you could see, and if you Google some of the tafsir in terms of libasun lakum ni, dia banyak, dia talks about purity, talks about cleanliness, it talks about beauty, it talks about adornment, and truly, if for me as a man, the wife tends to make sure that the husband is in the best presentation mode. Baju dah gosok tak, and you know, pakaian tu tak compang-camping, and benda-benda yang boleh menjatuhkan maruah one another. And I think this is something that men has to appreciate women when it comes to dressing and outward looking, as much as men also have to then, you know, assist and provide the support to the wife whenever they need to have their appearance look well, either in the house or as well as in public. So I want you to, in short, I want you to look at this this ayat 187 Al-Baqarah ni in relation to your marriage now, so that when you know that this is what the aspect and the perspective that you are going to work closely with your spouse, that will be one of your pathway to be living happily ever after. So I shall now pass to Auntie, who will then now move on to the next angle of this topic that we are discussing this afternoon. Over to you.
This evening.
For them, afternoon.
Yeah, for afternoon, yeah. Yeah, we are still discussing about the ayat, Surah Al-Baqarah verse 187, ayat 187, libasul lakum. And when we talk about garments, actually this is a form of imagery ataupun sesuatu metaphor, a metaphor that is being used. And when we talk about clothes or garments, a lot of things come to our mind. For instance, what are garments used for? And garments are, you know, garments, when you put on your best garments, the effect on you, you can feel different, you look good, you feel more confident, it enhances your beauty, your looks. And for men, you know, you look, orang kata segak. And not only that, even if you are overweight or underweight, garments have the ability to hide whatever shortcomings you have. So the way I understand it is that if we as husband and wife act as garments to one another, we become a source of these things. You know, when you are able to create such a beautiful relationship where your spouse become comfortable with you and you are very comfortable with your spouse, and your spouse becomes your bestest best friend and you are the bestest best friend for your spouse, you become confident via the relationship. And not only that, you work towards hiding each other's faults for a good reason, of course, demi menjaga maruah masing-masing, maruah bersama. And therefore, as every time I read this ayat, you know, I would ask, what do I need to do to become the best garment for my spouse? And I think when we challenge ourselves that way, inshallah, Allah will guide us to become that beautiful garment for our spouse, inshallah. Now,
Yeah, we move to this
the next,
first area, which is about,
area.
yeah, I think we set this as our scene setting, the landscape of where we then start to now move to the next level of our awareness in terms of making this marriage a happily ever after. We will finally ask that question, by the way, is it myth or reality? So all of us have a starting point, and that starting point ending our bachelorhood, perkahwinan zaman bujang kita dengan that ijab kabul. You start off with whatever intention you have, you as the husband and wife, and you then set sail the journey of your marriage. And whatever intention you have then, that is going to be the starting point. But then there is a basic question, and I would like to pass to Auntie now to take us on this discussion about intention. Have we really understood what we have made when we put the nawaitu to get married? Over to you.
Yeah, I truly believe that niyyah or intentions are very important. I mean, I'm sure that all of us, inshallah, have the purest of intentions, purest of niyyah when we want to approach our spouse, you know, to get married. And they are truly, truly important for a variety of reasons. I could think of a few. Number one, they color our expectations, what we, you know, do we expect our spouse to do this, to do that for ourselves? What are the kinds of responsibilities, obligations, for instance, that we expect ourselves and our spouse to shoulder? And number two, I'm thinking of baseline. What I mean by this is when you feel that things are not working well in your marriage, perhaps it's a good idea for you to go back, to remind yourself, to recall what was your niyyah in the first place when you marry, or rather when you approach your spouse, you know, with the intention of getting married. Sometimes I feel that, and I think this is, I do believe that this is something that a lot of couples experience, especially after they have been married for several years, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, you know, with children and with the work and with studies. You keep getting issues and challenges along the way. And sometimes that pure intentions with which you start your marriage, the intentions get blurred over time. And you begin to wonder, why did I marry this person? Or why did I get married in the first place? Because things can get overwhelming, you know, with so many things. And I do know that some people, even amongst the committed brothers and sisters, pun terasa macam marriage ni sometimes it could be a burden, an extra burden that you could do without. So if you feel that way, then it's good to actually recall, why did you get married in the first place, you know? And it's if we were to take a metaphor, maybe we can think of the niyyah, the intention, as a port, P-O-R-T, pelabuhan, and your marriage as a ship. So you get into a ship together with your spouse and you set sail, maybe through calm waters, calm seas or rough seas, and then every now and then it's good for you and your spouse to go back to port just to recharge, just to refuel, just to recalibrate your minds, you know, and maknanya hidupkan semula niat tu. Because to me, it's also a matter of we get distracted with so many things, and over time we do get distancing. We experience this distancing between one another, and sometimes it's kind of so easy to get into a pattern of relationship where you take things for granted. We don't realize how blessed we are with just the little things that our spouse is doing for us. We overlook these things, and you know, we start dreaming of things that are way better, and sometimes it does get to the point where it rubs on us in a negative way. So, you know, pure intentions, pure niyyah are like a beautiful flower, and after you have left them for a while out on the streets, it's good to just go back and dust off whatever dust or dirt that's on the flower so that you can see it shine again. So yes, again and again, to me, reviving that niyyah, making sure that it's very much alive and starting each day with a fresh niyyah, that's really important.
Yeah, in from uncle perspective, niat and the nawaitu and your intention drives your motivation. That's sort of an internal compass inside you on where exactly you are heading. And I think importantly is that both husband and wife needs to be open on what was their intention. I mean, it could be, you know, I want a company, you know, protect us from all the evil things, you know, from the fitna, and trying to safeguard our modesty. So these are some of the intention that we have, and sharing with your spouse, to me, allows you to align, allows you to work, and know that this is where we are heading. I mean, ultimately is to Jannah, but along the way, as we live in this world, we need to make sure that we kept ourselves intact, we keep ourselves warm to this idea. Uncle, I mean, Auntie talks about, you know, dusting like a flower, and for Uncle, marriage is just like a metaphor of a gardener who always ensure that the crops are all taken care, because it just cannot grow automatically. It needs that tender loving care, it needs the attention, it needs the fertilizer, it needs to be weed, things that needs to be weed out. You need to understand who are the enemy of this garden that you have. Could be insect, you got to put pesticides. So if you look at these activities from the gardener perspective of what different ways and means for it to materialize the end game. I mean, a gardener at the end of the day, he wants to make sure that it bears fruit, you know, can benefit from it, can enjoy from it. So likewise in marriage, you must see that what was your intention. Did you realize that there are potential external elements that could distance the relationship? Are you sensitive that it needs to be nurtured, just like what we mentioned, that it needs that fertilizer and water and warmth, so that then it is conducive environment between husband and wife, based on the seed that they have planted, you know, benih yang telah pun semai melalui niat mereka. And Uncle have great confidence, and I sincerely believe that when your niat and intention is pure, followed by the right action, just like the gardener just now, right action, not ignoring it, not allowing it to sort of distancing, and be able to withstand the challenges together. Just wanted to take this point of challenge together. It is not about trying to make your life difficult, but it's about trying to strengthen your firm, resilient, internal attitude, you know. So sometimes challenges given to us. I just remember when someone make a dua, oh Allah, make me an intelligent person. So instead of, you know, opening up your brain, Allah give you a problem for you to solve. By doing that, it sharpens your mind, it improves your understanding, provide clarity, and therefore you become an intelligent person. So this is for us to perhaps review and have that insight when it comes to intention. Intention is good. It is a good starting point, but it needs that effort. It needs to ensure that whenever you need to go back, refine it, polish it, and if possible, you have to tweak it for the betterment, because you need to know your end game as far as your relationship with your wife then. So we like now to move to the next one, because intention is already somewhat in the past for many of us. Like auntie and uncle was like 30 years ago. Let me just share with you my own personal intention. I mean, because I'm the youngest in the family, and my only I'm the only son of 2 children with my sister. I knew that my intention, apart from what the prophets has outlined, I've added mine, and I say, oh Allah, give me someone that will please my mother. So that was my intention. So throughout the way, it has been, we had gone through some challenges, but Alhamdulillah, at the end of the day, it has certainly made it much easier, because we have that understanding up front then, inshallah. So with that, let's move on to the next one. The next one is something that auntie and uncle felt that could derail the relationship as all of you have gone along. Studies have said, or rather mentioned, that marriage can sustain only about after the 3rd years and beyond. Because the first and the second year is about discovery, and it's about knowing one another, and then either you tolerate or you then, you know, go on through this period of turbulence. So the idea now is that one of the ways for us to enhance our relationship is to look into this situation of husband and wife avoiding the blame culture, because it is something that can we fall into this trap that we blame one another when something goes wrong. So again, have that libasun lakum, the garment concept idea back into your mind, that we have no one has gained anything by blaming one another, except that you have fueled, you have increased animosity within yourself. So auntie and uncle, one of the aspect that has made continuously maintain our strong relationship is that we wouldn't want to blame one another. Uncle personal attitude is that when something wrong happen, I'm a great believer that it is not about mistakes, it is about a new learning experience. Because why? It is diizinkan oleh Allah biiznillah, because that thing happen is within the control of Allah and outside your control. So if you have peace with Allah, whatever situation that happened between you and your wife, then you then be able to look it from a perspective of a constructive approach, and then quickly move on. Do not collect this as your baggage. And that's the one of the dangerous thing that happened between relationship husband and wife. Both start scoring brownie points, tripping one another, and then at the end, at some period in point in time, will regurgitate and try to score point. The truth is, if you win for whatever reason is, you won't get any prize, but you are going to lose your dear spouse for trying to create that blame situation. And the thing is, it is so easy to happen, you know, because it's both of you trying to manage the life as you go through into this journey. You got lost into the chores of day-to-day life. And I think this is where, when we look at one of the study that was made in Europe has made a study with 17 countries in 2014. So what they did in this study is a concept called the Beaker Index. This is an index that was done to 10,000 Europeans who argue, who blame about household chores, paid work, and money by country and by gender. So you could Google this, because if we make that as our contention point, a point of contention, then that is going to be potentially the spark that could, well, basically will not see the end of the road for living happily ever after. So let's get Auntie to share some of her thoughts in this area.
Yeah, we are still talking about happily ever after. Is it a myth or a reality? And we have talked about niyyah or intentions, how important the niyyah is. Libasul lakum, ayat 187 from Al-Baqarah. And now we are talking about the blame culture. And as I was reflecting and preparing myself for this topic, I told Uncle Fakri that, you know, after 31 years of marriage, I truly believe that one of the reasons why our marriage has worked so well, Alhamdulillah, is because we hardly blame one another for anything that has gone wrong or didn't work out the way we wished. And that is something that I truly respect Uncle for, because until today I can't recall him blaming me for anything, for that matter, whether, you know, it's a small thing or a big thing. It's always like, if something goes wrong, he would just say, okay, what do we do now, rather than, you know, going through. I mean, you know, when you know that you have done something wrong, of course you feel bad already, and if your spouse blames you for it, that actually makes it even worse. So yeah, it put worse than that, I would say. Especially if the matter is a grave one, it's a serious one. So what blame culture does to a marriage is it takes the shine off your marriage. And how does that happen? You see, there is this concept of the love bank. Kalau kita mudah nak tengok macam mana kesannya ataupun how our marriage, the love, yeah, the love in a marriage becomes less and less if led to blame each other for anything that goes wrong. So this concept of a love bank, how it works is very much similar to a physical bank, where if you want to keep more money, you go to the bank. Of course now we just do it online. We just deposit some money, we keep some money, and then over time it grows bigger and bigger, larger and larger. And every time you take out, you withdraw some money, so your balance drops. So in terms of the love bank, every time you do something that wins the heart of your spouse, the balance in your love bank becomes greater. And every time you do something that hurts your spouse, the balance in that love bank decreases or becomes less. So things like blaming one another, cari silap itu to him or her, you know, these actually are withdrawals from the love bank. Now, what are the alternatives to the blame culture? And sometimes I have to say that we do know theoretically, that we shouldn't do these things. Sometimes we still do it, and it may be because of unawareness. Maksudnya kita tak sedar, we might be unaware of what we are doing. And what about if our spouse likes to do it? What do we do? Again, maybe it's something that is born out of habit. without even having the intention of hurting each other. So there is this concept of learning. How do we, how do we get over this issue of blaming one another? You see, there are steps to learning, which I will share with you, the 4-step learning process. It begins with unconscious incompetence. And perhaps you have heard of this too, but that's all right. Even if you have known about this process, it's okay, because we all need good reminders again and again over time. So the first step is unconscious incompetence. Unconscious incompetence means you don't know what you don't know, right? And then after that is conscious incompetence. Conscious incompetence means you become aware. You realize what you do not know, right? And then the third step is conscious competence. That means you begin to inject new behaviors, new actions, so that you become, you experience different results in the relationship. And the fourth one is unconscious competence. That means you have behaved in a new way. You have started new actions, and over time it becomes so embedded in your life that it becomes second nature. Let me give you an example. For instance, let's say you are rude, for instance, without intending, without even intending to hurt your spouse, your wife or your husband. And one day your spouse was wise enough to sit down with you and sensitively, and I have to underline, emphasize this word sensitively. It's not easy to actually point out, giving this or creating this environment, atmosphere where you know that you have to say something that is very important because it hurts you so much. And your spouse is doing it not because he or she wants to hurt you, tapi memang dia tak tahu, memang dia tak sedar. And you know that if you don't do it, if you do not express it, if you do not bring it out to the open, it's going to have a bad effect, really negatively, adversely affect the love between you two. And that's a very sad thing to happen. And maybe by then it's too late. So by hook or by crook, you have to raise it. Okay, so you sensitively bring it up in a way that makes it palatable. Palatable, mungkin a bit difficult for the spouse to accept, but given a bit of time, he or she realize, okay, it's something that memang I tak sengaja, but I know that I have to change. All right. So first, before you share with your spouse the way you feel, he or she was in a state of unconscious incompetence. Alright, dia tak tahu apa yang dia tak tahu. And now after you have shared with your spouse, after you have shared sensitively, and this is what we call feedback given positively. And of course, we have to be very careful with the tone of voice and make it very short rather than a very long talk, especially kalau kita rasa macam spouse kita tak berapa comfortable the first time we introduce the idea. The first step is always the hardest. Now that the spouse understands or have some idea of what's causing the rift or the hurt on our part, now what he's experiencing is conscious incompetence. And over time, with perhaps more feedback, a little bit here and there, and more coaching, he becomes conscious competent. Maksudnya dia he tries to change his behavior to become better, to make the relationship better, to get better results between you and him or her. And over time, bila dia behave consistently in the more productive, in a more positive way, so he or she becomes unconsciously competent. Maksudnya it becomes second nature, that the learning has taken place and dah tak rasa kekok lagi. It's just like us learning to drive, for instance. Kan, masa mula-mula tu you feel very difficult. You are aware of so many things. It's just such a challenge. But over time, inshallah, it becomes just second nature, like habit. And inshallah, to me, if both the husband and the wife have this kind of understanding, have such a beautiful, open relationship, there's no such thing as perfection, but just working together to overcome these sensitivities actually takes both husband and wife a step closer to be happily ever after. And we did mention about the ayat Quran, and this is supported also by evidence from psychological research that there are couples who have been married 30, more than 40 years. And I remember sharing, kalau tak silap, it's either during the seminar there in Sheffield or during the previous online class, there are a lot of elderly couples who have been married for many, many years, and seeing each other is really a highlight of their marriage. So you just imagine seeing each other. They really look forward towards seeing each other at the end of the day, and it's like it's the best part of the day. So to me, that clearly means that happily married ever after does exist. But no matter how beautiful, how pure our intentions are, it has to be followed by actions. And we all know, behaviorally, our actions, sometimes we have learned the wrong stuff from the beginning before we got married, and we have to make adjustments. So every time we are willing to change, despite the discomfort, despite sometimes, it rubs on our ego, and of course, ego is both for men and women, our pride, then I wish to share with you that it's worth the change. It's worth the pain to change if we really, really want a marriage that's truly happily ever after, inshallah.
So I think just a final note on this aspect of blame culture. Uncle punya thoughts would be is to diffuse the differences diligently, as quickly as possible, nip it at the bud, and knowing the fact that you need to forget and to forgive, but importantly is to forge back that relationship. So the 3F, remember that: forget, forgive, and forge. So we move on to our final point, because when we discussed just now, we talked about the intention, which is predominantly things which is in the past, but then we talk about the present, whereby it is about the blame culture environment. So now, moving forward, looking at the future state, what are the things you could do differently? So one of the areas that Uncle and Auntie thought that could enhance the marriage is about being thoughtful. There's a saying, there's a short quote about thoughtfulness is the fruit of a loving spirit. So I think what we wanted to share with you is how you would like your relationship continue to be better and to enhance it further. Because the act of being thoughtful to one another, sometimes either it doesn't happen or is taken for granted. So couples do not take that opportunity. I learned it from my late father when it was told in the story by my late mother that when my father passed away, what he did was putting in the body scraper, the penggaru things for you to itch, that itchy thing. So when you get itch, so he before he went to the hospital, he have kept it to where exactly where my mom could reach, so that then she would be able to use it when it is needed. My mom keep on saying that how thoughtful he is, because it is not being mentioned, nor it is something that she asked for. So that's the power of not wanting to take the other person for granted. So it is something to focus on being positive, and for you then to build and help in building that understanding and relationship. So maybe we see on how this thoughtfulness, something that you could think you could do in your marriage, so that again it acts as a lever, it acts as one of the key strengths of building it to make it a happily ever after.
Yeah, I just would like to share a study. This is one of the many studies that has been done on marital happiness. And before that, I wanted to mention that actually there is a lot of research out there that supports the view, that supports the perspective that yes, there are couples who have been married for many, many years and they love each other. You know, the attraction is still there. And not only that, they really feel that their spouse, either wife or husband, are really very understanding, very accepting, still very loving after so many years. And one of the reasons that we don't hear about these things is because it's not something that can how do I say this? It's not something that is seen as important for many people. These days, you know, perpisahan ataupun divorces is something that is just accepted and it's no big news. So we really need to challenge the idea that when there are differences, is it really necessary for us to go, you know, separate ways, or is it really possible for us to rise, to transcend, to lift ourselves above these differences? Now, back to this study. One of the studies about happily married people are done by University of Virginia's National Marriage Project. Yeah, National Marriage Project done by the University of Virginia, and it involved about 2,870 men and women. And one of the things about these men and women is that they like to do things that are thoughtful to one another. Thoughtful ni maksudnya they like to do things without being asked. And it doesn't have to be big. It's not like they bring their spouse for a holiday. Perhaps that's one of the things that they do, but not necessarily that. We are talking about just the little things, you know, like picking up the baby when he or she is crying, when the baby is crying, or feeding without your spouse mentioning it, or just not mentioning things that, you know, I mean, if you have been married for some years, you know what actually will make your spouse happy or not happy. And being thoughtful, being kind, and being generous in this study was defined as the virtue of giving good things to one's spouse freely and abundantly. Maksudnya spouse kita tak minta pun kita buat freely and abundantly. But I'm not saying that, you know, you have to be like a doormat to your spouse. Far from it. That's not it. Maksudnya little things like when we see our spouse busy, kita buatkan simple breakfast ke, or you know, pick up things that's on the floor, for instance. And the surprising thing is that the effect on the person who does that. Yeah, it says here that the study found that men and women with the highest scores on the generosity scale, that means you are very thoughtful to your spouse, were far more likely to report that they were very happy in their marriages. So sometimes we think that, okay, I'm doing this to make my spouse happy. But actually, when you do these little things, these thoughtful things, being kind, being generous, the little things, ke letakkan kasut ke tepi ke, you know, nampak sampah dah tu kita, kalau dah penuh we throw it, things like that, it actually has such a big impact on our happiness. So again, you know, if we continue to be thoughtful to our spouse, then inshallah we are doing it for ourselves as well. And if you do it consistently, then inshallah we are moving closer and closer every day to happily ever after.
Yeah, I just Uncle would just like to share with you some simple act. You know, Auntie and Uncle, we go for our swim, for our morning exercise, and the minute we are back, auntie had to rush to the kitchen and get things organized, either to prepare for the breakfast or lunch and that sort of things. And quietly then uncle will pick up the wet clothes from our swimming and hang it in the bathroom, dried up. She didn't say it or ask for it. It was we are expected anyway to do ourselves because it's our personal belongings. But uncle take it as a point because when she was at the kitchen, she was doing for the family. So just that little things to alleviate her level of busyness of doing that. And hanging clothes is something that men don't normally do. You know, it's typically done by a woman, a chore by women, and that's done also by the Prophet when he sew his own clothes. So I think that gives that warm feeling to the relationship. That gives, there's a lot of trust, there's a lot of thoughts has been made. And indeed, I think for you men out there, you've seen your wife either, you know, getting busy late at night with their deadlines of submission, you know, trying to handle 2-3 children, you know, filling up their fuel for their car. You know that it's already on almost empty. And again, you're doing it because you have your spouse in your mind. And that's the thought that it is. And then you do something without being asked. That shows that you are not self-centered. You know, that shows that you are willing to complement one another. And I think that's the beauty of the marriage. It's such a wonderful. And again, we are about to wrap up where I now sincerely declare to you that is really marriage a myth or reality? Our response is really up to you to make it. The Quranic perspective has really cleared it, make that seeing Quran is made in heaven, literally, and the definition of you covering one another, libasun lakum. And once you have that in your mind as the landscape of how you are going to work within your organization, and then secondly now is to refresh, to review, and probably to re-look back at the intention you had on your marriage, so that then you know very well that you are going to reach to the destination, to the port that you have intended to do so, with something in the past that you need to review. For the present, if you are not doing the blame culture, or you are one way or the other has developed that kind of situation and environment, it is an opportunity to pause, to reflect, and to look whether you have done this injustice because of your inability, that you don't know what you don't know, so that you improve quickly to the ladder of competence to know what you should know and then act upon it unconsciously. And finally, in the state of future, as Auntie Jamila mentioned about, it takes time for you now to see what are the good things that your wife or your husband would like to have, and that little things that you do, you support, you help, that will bring delight, that will be warm, that will increase that relationship and enhance that feeling to uncle and auntie. This is indeed the way forward in ensuring that you would live happily ever after. I think with that, we really have come to the end of our presentation of 1 hour. We are more than happy to respond to any of your questions, clarification, and whether there is a need for you to you know, look it from your own context and situation then. But before I end, let's congratulate, although they are not there, Brother Hanifuddin and Arifuddin and Dr. Elina for the arrival of their baby girl that was recently was delivered today. Alhamdulillah, so it is certainly a joyous moment that we shared. Alhamdulillah, and we hope that they will also live happily ever after that. Inshallah. With that, I shall leave it to the MC of the online session then to open up for Q&A and then be able for us to wrap it up before the end of the session then. Jazakallah khair. The good things are from Allah, and certainly there is not perfect and lacking between auntie and uncle, whereby we need to improve in the way we have shared this knowledge then. Wa jazakallah khair. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay. Jazakallah khair to Uncle Fakri and Auntie Jamila for the very good sharing. And first of all, we would like to congratulate yang atas ulang tahun perkahwinan 31 tahun. Dan alhamdulillah perpanjangan sehingga ke syurga. Jadi soalan online so far masih belum ada. Jadi anyone who has questions related to family and parenting, especially in today's topic, are very welcome to post the questions. Just while waiting for the questions, I have something in my mind about yang tadi from Surah Al-Baqarah, that Allah mentioned that isteri adalah seumpama pakaian, suami isteri adalah umpama pakaian to each other. Jadi saya amat tertarik lah. Jadi I think this is a good motivation for me. Look to the best to my wife rather than to other people. So like whatever I dress up, of course because of Allah, and also to please my wife first other than other people. So I think that's the motivation for me. And also the second one is do anything that can help your wife in any ways, especially what like Uncle Fakri said about hanging the clothes while his wife in the kitchen. It's really touched my soul, my heart, because it happened to my parents as well. So it's very unexpected, normally very unexpected to close your wife close. So I think this is also a good thing to learn and to practice, other than picking up anything to help the kids or anything. So back to my wife, if she has anything.
I think Alhamdulillah, Jazakumullah khairan to Uncle Fakri and Auntie Jamila. I think there's so many words of wisdom there to share with us and everyone out there. I think for us who have only just traveled 7 years, Alhamdulillah. So hopefully happily ever after inshallah. But I think it's so true that happily ever after is not something that comes natural. You have to work for it, one thing, but it's definitely down to us. It's down to us as a team to work together. And I really like the points about the blame culture. I think definitely when you're in a team, you have to be on the same side. The moment you're on the opposite sides, you're going to lose the game. So you have to be on the same side, work together. Anything that comes along is about how to go through it together. Obviously, everybody will make mistakes, things will happen, Allah will test us, but hopefully to make us stronger rather than stronger rather than weaker, inshallah. And I think about the love bank as well. I think that's really important. I think I think it's interesting how you say from the studies that the more you give, the more the happier you are. I suppose it's about breaking the norms as well. Like sometimes, breaking the habits of not giving or not appreciating. And I think understanding, talking to each other about what we appreciate or what we like, what we prefer, and that way slowly we try and do what each other likes. And I think also importantly, that knowledge is important as well. Like, talks like these, sometimes you think but it's very dangerous when you don't know that you don't know. So I think through talks like this, at least we can finally know that we don't know, at least, and then start working on it. So I think that's really important points that I got as well during this talk. And maybe just to share another ayat from the Quran, Surah Ar-Rum verse 21, in Malay, dan di antara tanda-tanda kebesaran dia menciptakan pasangan-pasangan untukmu dari jenismu sendiri agar kamu cenderung dan merasa tenteram kepadanya, dan dia menjadikan di antaramu rasa kasih dan sayang. Sungguh pada yang demikian itu benar-benar terdapat tanda-tanda kebesaran Allah bagi kaum yang berfikir. And among his signs is this, that he created for you mates from among yourselves, that you may dwell in tranquility with them. And he has put love and mercy between your hearts. Verily in that are signs for those who reflect. So I think inshallah, so far we haven't received any questions. Hopefully we hope that the other viewers have benefited from this online talk
As we do.
as much as we have, inshallah. And thank you very much, Uncle Fakri and Auntie Jamila, for your time. And we really look forward for the next series, inshallah. Anything else?
Yeah, I think with that we wrap up our session with Tasbih Kifarah Surah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Asli inna insana fi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus solihat. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.